Why did I quit my job to go freelance? I've been freelancing for about 10 months now, for about 2 years now. Should you go to school for graphic design? How to get your first design job? Don't do work for free. Ways to make passive income as a graphic designer. Finding and keeping quality clients. Perfection is the enemy of good, and done is better than perfect. My name is Jesse Nyberg. I'm a graphic designer and content creator from Los Angeles. I work as a freelance graphic designer, make content on YouTube, Patreon, and Instagram, and I like to teach stuff about design and work on design projects online.
Take me back to the time when you left your agency job to be a full-time designer. What was the pros and cons going on in your head? And how was that transition like?
When I first left my agency job, that was like right before COVID, actually. So sometime in
2020.
February, or might have even been March 2020. I think it was a 1 year between when I quit and like everyone was kind of saying, I don't think we're going to leave the house anymore or whatever. And in that small span of time between quitting and getting the new job, which was my next job, everyone I knew that didn't quit with me, like they all got fired anyway.
Oh.
And they weren't able to get new jobs because COVID happened, but I fit in that 1 week window. I got and the job I got was at this place called Art of Sport, which is this like body care company that was co-founded by Kobe. It's all like, so we worked with like some of our athletes were like James Harden and Juju Smith-Schuster and people like that. And I was like the brand designer there. So I basically kind of ran everything. Like I did art direction, I did social media, all that. I was doing that for a while, all through COVID, working remotely and whatnot. And then I decided I didn't really want to do that anymore. Not because I didn't like it, but because I started doing the YouTube channel, as well as like I was getting more and more freelance to where it was getting really hard to work the job.
Okay.
And I felt like there was this moment where if I weren't to quit then, I'd have to either keep refusing freelance work or just be way too busy, trying to do like all these things. So I decided to quit, and I didn't really have any good plan. Like I hadn't, by no means was I doing enough projects for it to like replace the amount of money that I was making at the job, But the first like 2-3 months, I ended up making as much money as I was at the like what my salary was or whatever. And that was like pretty jarring because I was like, in my head, it was, I'm going to take the pay cut for the freedom. Okay. I didn't even have to take the pay cut. Okay. Like I just ended up still like handling it, Yeah. And, since then, it's been about 2 years. There's obviously, I guess maybe not obviously, but there has been some dry spells. Like there's been times where I don't have a project for like 3 or 4 weeks or something. And there's other times where it's super busy. So I think if you take the average, it's still pretty good. But I think that's something you definitely learn like with freelancing compared to working a job. The freedom that you gain, you also have to give up some of your mental capacity gets more full by always thinking about like, when's my next job, blah, blah, blah. Whereas when you're an employee, even if you might be stressed at work, but you know that they're going to pay you, even if you like, even if you're like, Christmas is coming around, you're going to get the money,
At some point you were like overwhelmed with the amount of freelance projects you were getting while you were at your full-time job. What made you pursue your first initial freelance gigs, even though you had a job?
So I had been doing like every job I ever had, I always still just did other stuff on the side.
Why?
So just because like, I think that's the only way to, because you can grow in your position and you can learn. And I learned a lot from like art directors and stuff.
Yeah.
But I felt like it's when you're in a junior position at places, you're not really being like challenged in the way that you would if you take on like a whole project on your own. So I felt like it's kind of the best of both worlds. I could learn the more like traditional stuff, like the agency things, and how to like run a brand with all the red tape and takes 10 weeks to put out like a social media post or something, And then I could see how it is when it's like more bootstrapped and like design an entire brand identity or whatever in like 4 weeks. And it's cool to get, because I've been doing freelance ever since I was like a junior or senior in university.
Yeah.
Granted, like it's kind of mid, like the work was whatever, and I'm like appreciative of the people that kind of took the chance on me, and you obviously always get better. But I noticed the people that I went to school with that weren't really doing like that self-starter type stuff on the side. All they did was the coursework.
Yeah.
They were kind of you know, like at the bottom of the class more, you know,
Checking off,
because
yeah.
and to me it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do all this side work so I could be the best like at
Mhm.
at the school. It was just I wanted to. It was
Do more,
fun.
yeah.
Like it was cool to I would make zines with my friends and stuff and do like photography projects, whatever, and design stuff. It was kind of like surprising to me that these people didn't want to do it. Like they were just like, I'm just trying to do the classwork and go home and whatever. But in my mind, they should have just you might as well just done like a STEM degree or something.
You
Then
you
you're
wanna
gonna get
follow the
paid more
course.
if you're
Yeah.
not trying to do all that
Yeah.
shit on the side, you know?
Walk me back to the time when you actually left your job at the sports design company,
Uh-huh.
and like what were the first, I don't know, couple of quarters going full time?
Money wise, it was good. I was like, yeah, like getting all my bills paid and everything. And the YouTube and all that other stuff, it wasn't really making money yet, but I always felt like it was on the cusp of starting to make a little bit of money,
Mhm.
as well as like I got a few like sponsored Instagram posts and stuff.
Interesting.
And I started to think like, well, that's also like a way for me to hedge my bets in like my freelance
Freelance
business.
space, yeah.
Cause I think full transparency, there's probably been times where I would have been way more stressed if I didn't have some of that to back it up.
Some
Cause
of that being the Patreon and the
yeah, like
YouTube.
just the content, let's say
Yeah,
content
okay.
creation is a good hedge for like a freelance business, I think, because
Interesting.
uh, I don't think I'm like the best designer in the world or anything like that. So I know that there's going to be times where stuff can be slow, and especially with the economy and like recessions and
Being
things like
recession,
that.
yeah.
The content stuff doesn't seem to be as affected by that
It's not,
compared
no.
to, you know, like no one's starting their own company
Company, yeah.
when they don't have enough money to even live
Buy
or whatever.
eggs.
60 or 70% of my income is from design work,
Client work,
and then
yeah.
the other stuff. And in the sometimes it's like it could be either like percentage could be different, you know. There's months like I had a my biggest time, like the first time I made a actual amount of money on YouTube that felt like it mattered was in December, because I think all the ad rates were higher.
Higher, yeah.
So I made like $1,000 that month,
Okay.
and I had only ever made like 300, 500, and it coincided with like one of my videos getting more views. And when that happened, I was like, damn, I'm not gonna rely on this because that shit
Yeah.
fluctuates. But I started thinking like I could really, you know, maybe keep doing this and turn down maybe a few other projects and just
Yeah.
focus on the ones I really want to do. You
I think
know?
like for most entrepreneurs who have like a YouTube wing in their portfolio, the best way to look at like quote unquote YouTube money is to see it as like found money,
Mhm.
like money which you find. Like you
Right.
don't put that in your balance sheet as like, and based on that YouTube money you buy stuff or you account for expenses in your business. But if you find that that's like a hedge against whatever,
Mhm.
like you just found that money, all right, cool, that helps me, whatever.
Right, right. Versus like I would more account for the money that like the actual I've done like actual ads where I get paid by the
Yeah, the brand
company.
work, yeah.
Yeah, like not AdSense. And that you know is like gonna be this is the amount.
Sustainable.
Here's the rate.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get like affiliate or whatever.
Because you have
But
control over it. That's
exactly.
awesome. You said client work. So like initially, what was your relationship with client work, and were you in a position to say no to clients, and what kind of client were you looking for?
My thing was I was trying to find projects that paid well so I could do less of them
Mm-hmm.
rather than doing like 10 smaller like one-off things. Because when you get like a more corporate bigger project, they might not be as like creatively fulfilling sometimes, but they help you have more of a runway to where then you can say no. I definitely started turning down the stuff I didn't like, not want to do at all. I think you have to sometimes be honest with yourself when stuff isn't for you and be like, I don't want to work on this. When I was in college and like, you know, 1 year out, I just did everything, you know, because I
Okay.
was like, fuck it. I'm
Because
just
you didn't
gonna,
have the privilege to say no.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes I don't have the privilege to say no now, you know,
Okay,
like
yeah.
you could catch me on 1 month and, you know, my rate might be different or something, you know, because if I don't really care about something, I'm probably going to throw them like a higher rate
Yeah,
because if
'cause
they say no, I don't really
you
care.
don't care, yeah.
If they say yes, it's like, all right, fine.
Okay, pause. That's such a unique, not unique. That's such an important mindset to have, though,
Hmm.
because like if you have a project that you care about and you think having that project in your portfolio makes it different, then even without that client knowing, they have the leverage,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Whereas on the other side, if you care about something and you want it in your portfolio, no matter what, for whatever reason, maybe
Mhm.
the brand is super cool, or maybe you think that this is something which you haven't done it and it's a challenge, then you are kind of like, hey, I want to do this.
Right.
So like the rate is kind of like the second factor there.
Yeah, because people ask me for my rates all the time. Like
Yeah.
anyone, like I've had, like Sony or something
Yeah.
ask me for my rates
Uh-huh.
versus like this person hit me up recently that's making a documentary about like this jazz documentary. And it's really cool. And I think that's something I'd want to do. If they don't have the amount that I want, like I might try to meet them lower because
Yeah.
it seems cool and it's like an independent film and stuff. Whereas like I'm not gonna lower my rates for like
Sony.
Amazon or some shit. Yeah.
Because like
Because they have the
get the
money,
money, yeah.
and it's like you can. The way I look at it is make more money off like these like corporations,
Yeah.
so you could give the small people a break. you
Oh
know?
wow, that's such I don't know what's the right word, like a benevolent way of like seeing things.
Yeah, I just
And
like hate some of these big
altruistic,
companies.
yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah, dude. Either way,
you
I
gotta
guess.
milk them a little bit.
Talk to me about like when you take a client work at this time, like at this point of your career, what are you trying to get out of it? Is it just money or is it like different things? Is there any like list you're hitting? Hey, if it's not paying the bills,
Mhm.
is it doing something else for me? Stuff like that. What's that screening process for you?
I made like I made a whole video about this, but it was so I think I read it in a book or something, but it's like 3 things, right? And there's these 3 things, and if it has 2, then I'll do it. So
Okay.
it's like get paid well is one of them.
Yeah.
2 is make meaningful connections or like
Okay.
networking, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then the third one is like learning something new.
Interesting.
So if it doesn't pay good, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna work with cool people and learn shit, I might still take it
Yes.
on
Yeah.
or learn and money or whatever combination. Because if it's just money, then I'll only take that on if I'm like down bad,
Yeah.
And when it's just money, it's probably something that's boring, something you already know how to do,
Yeah.
and it's probably not for an exciting like individual or brand. And that's kind of that's when I think people fall into the trap of like not enjoying
Mm.
design anymore because design is obviously a little bit more constrained by capitalism than just like art.
Correct.
But you learn the most when you're kind of working on things for yourself because that's when some of the like character comes into it. And that's when you separate yourself from being just another designer to being like, you're Jesse or you're whoever,
Got the artist. Yeah.
And I think that's like the most privileged place you would want. I think people would want to get to as like a designer or an artist or a photographer is I want that person, not I want the camera or I want the Photoshop.
Design is constrained by capitalism is like one of the craziest thing I've heard, and it's like true as hell. But so like for young designers and people who are coming up in this space, since you said design is constrained by capitalism, and at the end of the day, designers need to feed themselves just
Mhm.
like every artist does, and it all depends on whether or not you can market yourself. So would you like? Is it a good thing for designers and artists in general, I guess, to go more niche or to go as broad as possible?
Yeah, I think they both have their advantages. Like
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of start out as a generalist because it's probably not up to you what you're
like,
working on.
find
You're,
your
you're
niche,
doing
yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
and you can only get to like the niche from trying all this stuff.
Mhm.
So at the very least, that one comes first. You can't just say you're like a specialist if you've never even tried all the
Right
other
off the
stuff.
bat, yeah.
At least a little bit. If you don't like something, don't waste your time like trying to get good at it.
Yeah.
Like for example, I'm not very good like drawing, like straight up drawing, like
Mhm.
fine art. Like I wouldn't be good at drawing like this scene, by looking at it. And for a while that kind of bothered me. And then I realized it's better to put my time into the things I'm already kind of good at and make those better than just try to be mid at like everything,
Mhm.
And so I would say find your specialty and then you can kind of get into it, but don't be afraid to try new things. I think sometimes people think they have a niche or a specialty, and that means, oh, I can't work on that. I only do
That's not my thing.
I only work with red, so like that's a green brand or whatever. And it's good to have a specialty because then you become more sought after and it's like what I was saying where they come to you for you and that's cool. But don't be afraid to like try. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself. Like you be open to trying new things. Like every once in a while I'll take on a project that I might not even really know how to do all the deliverables
Yeah.
from the get-go, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but you could always like learn on the job too and shit like that. And I think
So like what you said, there are like too many things, and in terms of like you approaching design. So like, what if a designer finds too many things appealing?
mm,
Where should they start?
I would probably which one you like the most.
Okay.
I think it becomes pretty apparent after you do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm really into like typography and posters and like incorporating analog processes into the entire like workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something that I said like I want to be this type of designer.
That
Like
guy,
I want to work with type or I want to work with like these analog techniques. It was just that experimentation came from what I was talking about with the personal work.
Okay.
And now I've been approached to do client work that incorporates some of those things that I just did on my own.
Okay.
So sometimes that, like, I think,
How paint me like a pragmatic picture. Like how long does that realization take from like you realizing that this is what you want to do and you keep iterating on your own without any client work to the point where you get good at that said niche and then clients approach you? How long is that process?
I think I'd equate it close to like that whole like 10,000 hours, like
Okay, yeah.
Gladwell type thing.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I don't know the exact amounts, but from like COVID to now, I probably put in that, I feel like, or close to that in terms of just experimenting and personal work. And I don't think I'm anywhere near where I want to be, but I'm not, I at least don't have that feeling of I don't know what I like and I don't know what I want to do. If you don't know your purpose, like your purpose should be trying to find like what the purpose is, you know?
When someone is working in an agency, right? More often than not, like you said, that purpose thing, they don't. They're probably not realizing what their purpose is in design because they're
Mhm.
doing stuff that they're getting handed, right?
Right.
Like, hey, do this job. They're doing this, so they're not like zooming out and realizing what do I like as a
Mhm.
creative or a designer. Is that realization like necessary for a creative, or is it okay for someone to just treat design as a job?
100% you can just do it as a job. And like, that's what I thought I wanted to do too. And I always thought that, I almost thought that that was the only option. And there's no better or worse. It's the
Yeah.
same way you could do commercials or you can make like art house films or whatever.
You said that there's no better or worse, but like when you're interacting with someone who is clearly treating this as a job, do you in your heart and soul like get annoyed or like
Well, it's kind
because I'm only saying because I'm projecting right now because I do. Like,
yeah.
that's why I'm asking you this question.
So, because you do like video, and if someone's just doing it to make money, you would maybe think, why don't they do something?
Yeah, it's not just
else?
like video. Like I work in the news space and like the sports space, and I
Oh,
know a
I see.
lot of people who treat both those genre of content and like journalism just as a way to make money, which is
Yeah.
fine. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm only working with you because I have to.
If you're trying to make money, I know I can make more money doing some other shit,
Yeah,
on like some business shit or
Yeah.
finance or accounting, and it's probably if you're not having fun doing anything creative,
yeah,
then what are you doing it for?
yeah,
It's at the end of the day, we all want to have fun and like enjoy the process and enjoy our time. It's kind of sad if you really think about it that someone would pursue a creative career for only monetary gain, no like fulfillment. And sometimes I'm in a privileged place to like even sometimes think about these ideas and stuff.
I mean,
know.
you have gotten to a privileged place.
Yeah. And I know that sometimes you're working at a job where you don't get any say,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it. Like
yeah,
whenever you do something, like do it all. Like always do
Yeah.
your best and just like put your heart into it, even if it feels kind of like not for you. Cause you can always go home. Like when I worked at the jobs I didn't like, whether they were design or when I worked like fast food and shit,
yeah.
I was so excited to go home and just like go on my laptop and learn and make design and shit. And those are some of the most like I feel like passion and drive I had was when I wasn't fulfilled at the actual job because all you wanted to do was go home and do that. Or like I know people who do like streaming and stuff and
Yeah.
all they want to do is like get off their normal job so they can do that.
Go back to streaming.
That's how I felt about design. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, to know that there's people that don't think about it that way, like that's their thing. But I think I do it because I like it,
That's awesome. This is going to be the not fun part of the podcast. So like when you decided to like leave your job and like go full-time freelance, what were all the hurdles which you had to come to terms with after the honeymoon phase washed away, like health insurance and stuff like
Mhm.
that? So like what was those like
Well, 'cause-
checkbox exercises that
So
you
I've
had to
been
do?
freelancing for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
I got health insurance last month
Oh,
for the first time in
cool.
January
Hap stoked for you, dude.
2023.
Yeah.
And that wasn't because I couldn't afford it, but I was
Yeah.
just like,
So,
fuck it.
fuck
I'm
it.
just
Yeah.
not gonna spend the money,
Yo, yeah.
And then everyone just kept scaring me, They're like, dude, if you get hurt, all that money you didn't spend, it's gonna be like times 3 that
Yeah.
to like even fix like a broken arm or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it did scare me a little bit. So I was like, fine, I'll save them. It's like $300 a month or something that
Yeah.
I pay now. But that sucks. But some of the jobs I had didn't even give me that anyway. You really have to be disciplined, man. That's the main thing with money is even though I make consistently probably the similar amount, like I said, as my other job, and I'm hoping it continues to grow, you don't get that security of knowing it's coming. So I almost feel like sometimes I have to always be like 2 or 3 months ahead in like rent and stuff.
The runway, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll live below my means more.
Yeah.
So I don't ever have to be like, oh shit, it's the 25th or whatever, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make it. You know, when your income goes up one month, don't
Yeah.
raise your expenses.
Yeah.
Keep them at a baseline.
Yeah.
So that way, when all the ups and downs will keep you at
Balances
that
out.
average.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people get, they get like a big job and then you see them like out balling and shit,
Yeah.
and then and flexing and throwing all their money away. And if you hang out with me, like all my friends would know, they don't really know how I'm doing because I act the same regardless.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I'm pretty frugal and I try to enjoy myself, but I like that peace of mind and
Yeah.
runway is worth way more than anything I could buy.
That's
know?
awesome. Like, so in that same vein, are you looking towards like one point in your client work where you would like reach quote unquote your escape velocity when you're like not conscious of that runway? Like, is there like a next step or are you okay with?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what it is because, the way I feel like humans work, it's so easy to adjust to your current lifestyle.
Mhm.
I grew up very like pretty poor and like Section 8 and like food stamps and all this, and that felt fine to me. And when I was like super broke in college, that kind of felt fine to me. And when I started to make more money, it doesn't feel like I'm rich or anything. It also
Right.
feels normal to me. After like I never thought I'd just be living out here in LA, like having my own apartment and stuff. But now it just feels normal. Like, oh yeah, it's just no big deal.
Yeah.
But then talk to other people and they're like, what? How do you afford that or
Yeah,
whatever?
it's perspective.
And it's just weird because hopefully what's good about coming from not that is if I go back to being poor, I know how to do it.
Oh yeah.
I could eat the ramen and shit
Yeah.
and just like not go out anymore. I'm not tripping. But the question was, what's the amount do you think where I'll be like not worrying about it?
Correct. Like everyone thinks about that point where it's
Yeah.
like that's because like in 20s it's like you take one day at a time, you
Mhm.
see how things are going, you adjust your lifestyle, you do all these things, and especially when you're creative because you're balancing that lifestyle factor and that figuring myself out factor. And when you go to 30s, you start thinking about, all right, okay, I've done all that. What is the next step?
Right. Yeah, because I know they say like at a certain amount of money, the rest is like diminishing returns on like happiness.
Yeah, it's
and
like the
stuff.
happiness thing. Like, how much money do you need to make happy?
I guess since I live in LA, I don't know. It's probably like
Yeah.
120 grand a year or something is
Okay.
probably where like anything above that would be cool, but it's not gonna
gravy.
like impress me
Change
too
your life,
much
yeah.
or change my life. But I'll know I'll have everything settled.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the year just ended. I probably made like 65 grand this year
Okay.
or something. And that felt good too. So I don't know.
Like working for yourself, making 65 grand a year and like taking care of what you're doing. I mean, I'm just talking in like vacuum. As long as you're happy
Yeah, exactly.
and you're building your portfolio, that's pretty clutch.
Yeah, I mean, I made 60 grand at the job, so
Yeah. So there you go. So like
Yeah.
you're working for yourself. Now, are you focusing eventually to go all in on, and it gets thrown around a lot, like the creator economy? Because that feels like the next step where all creatives are headed.
yeah.
And in terms of like let's say at some point, do you want to like stop working with like brick and mortar stuff and just focus on the creator economy part of business?
Yeah, like just be a design like creator or whatever.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't think I can do that. Not from like a I need it in my soul type of thing,
Yeah.
but I need to be doing design to have like the social proof of talking about it.
Gotcha.
Like my content wouldn't exist without me being a designer. I feel like Chris Do,
No.
He runs this thing called The Future. He used to be a designer and now he's a lot more like marketing and business.
Okay.
Think of like the designer like Gary Vee or something like that,
Yeah, that's
right?
awful
Like
to
that
think of,
kind of
but,
that, but not as what's the word?
loud.
Extreme, I guess.
Yeah.
He's pretty chill, you know.
Yeah.
He's a cool guy, but his content's all about like marketing and stuff now because I feel like it's been so long since he's actually, you know, touched the mouse or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
He's so far removed from like the actual in the lab, you know,
Yeah.
that he's more thinking of bigger things. And I like that stuff. And I think what he's doing is cool, but I still want to be like about design. Like I want to be a designer first, content creator second,
Okay.
not the other way around. But that doesn't mean the content can't be making more money.
Of course.
I
yeah.
just don't ever want to.
In your soul, you want to be a designer. First.
Yeah. And I think I have to because, you know, if I talk about something like getting clients or, you know, whatever on my YouTube channel, if I didn't do that for a while, you start to be like, well, what the fuck? He's not even working. How does he know?
Yeah, like he has no credibility.
Yeah. It's not like I've been working for 30 years and I have all
Yeah,
this like
this old
crazy.
wisdom,
Yeah. So I think it's good to at least just stay in there, even if it becomes a little bit like swayed in the amount. Maybe I'll do more content at some point, but I think it'll still always work out well because doubling down on the content stuff will just allow me to work on projects that I like more and maybe take
Interesting.
more insights from those. and
You
stuff.
brought up your content creation, which is, I guess, how I found you. Talk to me about like the point in your own career where you decided that, hey, this is something which is not just a passion thing,
Mhm.
like making YouTube video and talking about your work on Instagram. That is something which is like bringing me the clients. What was that, you know, that climbing the ladder thing from making it just like a hobby thing to like this is your marketing wing, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I started the YouTube channel and like actually trying to post a lot on Instagram during COVID.
Okay.
So like I think in 2020, I started it and I had like 800 Instagram followers
Wow.
and now I have like 84,000.
Yeah.
And that I just was posting like some reels and posting design work and a lot of the personal work. So like not only does that personal work get you better as a designer and fulfill me creatively, but it's content.
Yeah.
And what's cool about it is I'm making it for myself, so I don't have to wait for someone's approval to put it on my page.
Yeah.
And then clients see that and they go, "That's dope. We want a poster like that," or can you do that for our band or whatever?" And then maybe you can. If you don't put out the type of work you want to be doing and like show people what you can do, you can't just sit around and wait for clients if you've
Mhm.
never had any, you know? So that kind of ramped that up. I don't think the YouTube really gets me clients because the audience is other designers
Yeah.
and other creatives, you know? So it's kind of like,
A community thing.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube, yeah.
and it's more just like, I like it. I've learned to actually enjoy. I'm all into the like creator shit too. Like we said
Yeah.
with Colin and Samir, like I love watching that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I get really, really into things that I like. So that side of my business has become kind of just as much of an obsession as my design.
Yeah.
I'm all like obsessed now with the thumbnails and click
Yeah.
through rate and all that. And I think, like I said, like if you're gonna do something, try to do it good. Like
Yeah.
at first, I was all like trying to be low key about it. Like, yeah, I have a channel, but now I'm trying to be proud, you know. And maybe I had to put my dumbass face like with my mouth open on the thumbnail or
You
whatever.
gotta do what
but
you gotta do.
whatever, you know.
Thumbnail, yeah.
If they don't get in there, then it doesn't matter
Doesn't
how
even matter.
cool you could be. The coolest guy ever with 500
These
views.
two lines that you said, it was like I have my own consulting on like besides my job. It's the hardest thing for me to explain to people because they come it from like such a high horse angle. Because I
Yeah.
work with a lot of like Silicon Valley people, tech people, and stuff like that, and they have like spent like years in their job and they're
Right.
making like shit ton of money. And when I'm telling them like, hey, you gotta like do a little pizzazz,
Yeah,
and it's like they think that somehow that's beneath them.
yeah, it's corny or something.
It's like corny or something, which it is.
Yeah, but fuck it, you know?
But yeah, like, but it's part and parcel of the job.
It's like if it was the platform's like the client. What's the best
Yeah.
solution for that? You know?
Exactly. Like at the end of the day, like cold calling was a thing for a reason.
Right.
Is the same way to look at it. But changing gears a little bit, like right now we are in poo-poo part of the economy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And shit's weird. It's up and down. And when the economy is not doing well, most brands and most agencies are not the first people, but like the marketing wing of any agency takes the first hit.
Yeah, which is dumb.
Because like sometimes like the cream of the crop is like, we don't really need that. We need like salespeople, or we need the people who are actually running the code or whatever. So A, what do you think about that? And B, if there's a designer, how can he or she insulate themselves from the
Yeah.
effects of that?
I don't agree because I heard about something, this one quote one time that I resonated with. It was something along the lines of like, if your business is like sinking, cutting marketing first is like adding more holes in the ship.
Okay.
You know, it's just going to speed it up because
Yeah.
if you're failing, it's because either no one thinks what you do is good
Yeah.
or no one knows about it.
Yeah.
So you're just going to stop those two things and then think that you're going to turn around. You can have the cool ass code or whatever of your
Yeah.
software, or you can have the best, ramen spot in the city, but if no one hears about it, then it's kind of
Who gives a
pointless.
fuck? Yeah.
And I don't like to. I know it's like biased because I don't like when people say like design's the most important thing in the world, because it's not.
Yeah.
You need all that other shit, of course, and they're all equally important. But I think like that's not a good idea to do that. But how you can maybe protect yourself from like a recession as a designer, is that kind of the
Maybe, I guess you can't sometimes, but like, what are the ways you can like hedge against it?
well, there's other, I would focus on clients that aren't really too affected by these things, whether they have a larger size, so they kind of just steamroll over like whatever's going on in the economy, or like smaller clients
opposite,
that
yeah.
weren't affected anyway. Like if it's your homie's band who needs album art, he's not like looking at
Dude,
the
this-
S&P
this-
500 and shit.
Funniest thing ever.
Like, oh damn, like we can't put out our EP. So you either go big or you go small. I think
Yeah.
when it's like with the economy, the middle goes down like
first,
the middle
yeah.
class or whatever. It's kind of how the clients are. The middle
Yeah.
clients kind of
That's
bottom out,
fascinating. I've never thought of that, but that's so fucking true.
And I haven't been doing this a long, so this is my first, daddy's first recession or whatever, So I don't know. Like this is my first time, so it's not really. I don't think I could give a lot of advice because for me, it's only been, COVID to now was pretty good. Like until the past maybe like 6 months or a year, I've noticed it a little bit I got less like with the YouTube, like less
CPM.
brands reaching out
Okay,
to be like, can we do us like a ad or whatever?
Okay, yeah.
So I'm sure they're like struggling, but I haven't noticed it with clients too much. And I think another way you could help is, like hedging your bets with something else. Sell prints, like sell your artwork, or if you do like more art stuff, find other like, I guess, passive side things to do. You can
What
do
are some
content.
passive incomes for like designers, you say?
I feel like there's none that are like truly passive because they take a lot of like upfront work,
Maintenance fees, yeah.
and stuff, and they're not like. You could sell like digital products that could be on Idle, which could be like, you can make a typeface, and sell that. You can make like texture packs, brushes, like plugins, whatever. You have to know how to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
And don't just be like making another fucking grunge printer pack or whatever that we already all have, Like come up with something new, or you could do like content. Yeah. Like you won't make money from the content shit right away unless you get lucky. I'm telling you that.
Or in the next 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, because I have I think 30,000 subs or 32,000,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me 1 year and like 6 months to get the 1,000.
Monetized, yeah.
Yeah, and then it like the last like 25K have all been in like 3 or 4 months. Like
Interesting.
it's exponential, which is rewarding. You start to reap the rewards.
Yeah.
I've uploaded like over 100 videos and shit. So I'm not doing like it perfectly. Maybe that could be also it. Like I could be doing it better, but it's a burn. Like you got to like it too. You got to enjoy it. So you can have side hustles that'll help you with that stuff, but more likely than not, you would have had to have developed them a little bit out like before the bad shit happens.
Sure. As you like grow deeper into your career, obviously you want to keep raising your rates,
Mhm.
right? So like, how do you raise your rates without making enemies?
I don't think it's enemies, right? Like
Yeah,
if,
I mean, I'm just
do you think that if I say a high rate and a client doesn't want it, that they're gonna like dislike me? Is that what you mean, like an enemy?
no,
actually?
I'm not saying like, first of all, even if they dislike you, don't really matter.
Yeah.
But B is like the half-life of it, like, hey, so if I raise my rates right now, am I gonna lose this client? And if I do more of that,
Mm,
that's gonna like increment and affect my whole business as a general.
yeah.
But at the same time, I also want to be competitive because eggs cost
Yeah.
more than it did last
Well,
quarter.
yeah, they're like
So
$12 or
yeah,
whatever.
so like, how do you do that?
I think you just have to not operate from like a scarcity
There you
mindset
go,
like that.
abundance mind. Okay.
Yeah, because you know, those times where I had said too high because I was feeling good,
Yeah.
usually like a lot of times it's they either say no or 2 days later they email me back or whatever
Okay.
and they're like fine. And there's other times where don't get me wrong, I've priced myself out of a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you regret it, but you can't dwell on that. You have to think about you're saving your time for a better thing that's about to come up. If I was accepting a project for below what I think I deserved, it'd take up my time for when the good one came around. Then I wouldn't be able to work on the actual one that is like the good rate, you know, because you're
Yeah.
stuck with this shitty project. So you have to just, and I'm talking about it from a place of doing it. I did shit for free. I did shit for super cheap. I'm not above that when I was starting out. I don't like to recommend doing like spec work or anything like that because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
But you also can't have like no experience and think you're gonna call the shots when you're like an
Yeah.
intern or whatever. So I think if you're not losing jobs here and there for your prices being too high every once in a while, then
Mm-hmm.
you're probably not charging enough. If everyone says yes, always.
Are design schools teaching this, by the way?
No,
No.
not at
Why do you
all.
think they're not teaching it?
I just don't think they're so like academia is so obsessed with like keeping the craft of whatever they're teaching pure that they don't want to talk
Yeah.
about like business, I think sometimes.
Not even like how to invoice your clients or write your contracts.
No,
and
because they
stuff
don't
like that?
really I didn't go to a fucking cool
Okay.
design school, so
Yeah.
maybe someone at like SCAD or something would tell you, no, they
Yeah.
hooked us up with like accounting and all this shit.
Yeah.
At my school, it felt like the professors were under the impression we were all just going to work at like an agency or a studio after we graduated, which first of all is pretty ambitious because those are some of the harder jobs to get. And a lot of these
Interesting.
people I don't think had the work for it.
Yeah.
And secondly, that kind of canceled out anyone who thought they would want to work on their own, you know?
Mhm.
So I've learned all this stuff just on my own. And that's why I think that's why I try to teach or like, I don't like to say teach because a lot of my content it's me learning as I'm also teaching. Like I want to be growing with the audience as well. I'm not trying to talk about it from like a superiority place. But if I learn something that's helped me, I want to convey it to someone and they can think it's bullshit or take it and use it, whatever. It doesn't bother me. But a lot of this stuff, yeah, I learned on the side because, you know, it sucks. No one wants to do the business shit, but if you're gonna be
Yeah.
successful as a creative,
Yeah.
either someone has to do that for you, you hire someone, or you learn how to do it yourself, you know?
I'm like the last question, since you said the business side, I would say, um, hypothetically, let's say you go back in time and you just graduated from school, how would you make your first $1,000 as a designer?
First $1,000 would probably be made from a logo or a
Okay.
brand identity
Interesting.
for me because that was what I was really into at the time. And those traditionally pay higher than I can charge around that much now for like other things, like
Yeah.
posters and stuff, but not then. Then I was charging like $50 or doing my friend's album art for like $100 or whatever.
Right out of school, how you find that client?
Just friends, people online, bothering people.
Yeah.
If you think what someone's doing is cool,
Yeah.
talk to them about it and you know maybe you could be their friend first or just have if you actually think something's cool show genuine interest in it or
Yeah.
compliment someone on what they're doing and maybe it'll turn to something down the road. No details, but you know how we worked on something
Yeah,
together.
it's fine. Go for it. Yeah.
So we worked on something together and that only happened because I told you I liked what you were doing with
Yeah,
this.
I mean, like, I'll break it down. So, like, I started my YouTube channel like 4 months ago because I realized that I have this Rolodex of people that are super interesting and might as well start talking to them. And I put out this episode with Andrew Schultz's producer, Shifty,
Yeah,
and you happen to like it, and you
Mhm.
let me know, and that's how I found you.
right.
And I also ended up liking your stuff, and we quote unquote kept in touch. But just because I had you in the back of my head as a designer, and I'm a consultant with a lot of news channels,
Yeah.
YouTube channels, independent journalists, stuff like that. When one of those YouTube channels needed a designer for their new logo, you were literally the first name which popped in my head.
Exactly.
Not because, and no offense to you, you were the best designer
Right.
in my Rolodex, but it's like in the proximity of the digital space and with knowing what your work is, I was like, oh shit, he's the first guy I should reach out, even though
Yeah.
I have like a Rolodex of 10 designers that I could have
Right.
talked to. But just because of the proximity and you actually putting yourself out there and like being vulnerable or whatever,
Mhm.
like you were the guy I reached out to, and we did business together.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's, you know, it's not like when I was talking to you, I would have known any of this. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Neither did I.
Yeah. So I think you just, like, if you see, if someone's doing something cool online, like, and you think it in your head, oh, that's tight.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
tell them,
Just
like,
associate
they'll
yourself.
feel good because
Yeah.
they'll get the validation.
Everyone's a person at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
and you'll
It's
feel
so
good
funny.
because you're like, I'm so nice. I told this guy his shit's
Yeah,
cool or
yeah.
whatever. So it's like a win-win, and then
Yeah.
maybe it'll be business. But like some of my most meaningful client relationships have come. It's not like we're all tight homies or anything,
Yeah.
but they're people that were kind of like I was associating with on some level, even
Yeah.
replying to their stories or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are it's like you said, like you thought of me first, not because you're like, he's perfect for this, but like I was fresh in the mind. It's the same way, like when people ask me who my favorite musician is, like it's probably who I'm listening to recently, not
yes.
if I looked down my entire
Yeah.
discography or whatever.
But no, that's fascinating. Yeah, we'll just wrap it right here. Again, like super stoked that you found time for this. And
Yeah, no problem.
I really like to talk to like people who are independent and doing it on their own, not because I think like they are the best at what they are doing, but I think they are like finding their own trajectory in their career, and I think that makes for better stories. And also I think that helps a lot of people out because like you said, like your YouTube channel is full of other designers who probably lack that guidance which you are providing them
Mhm.
regarding a lot of things, like how to make passive income as a designer, or like how do you figure out the whole freelance world on your own. So
Right.
and you're putting out that content just because you want to,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's like an awesome thing for you to do.
Mhm.
So again, thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
and
dude.
Hope you keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.